Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. How the devil are we all? My name is Jevon Thompson, and on the 25th of July this year in 2025, I finished doing a charity walk called the Long Road. It was an event walking from the top of Great Britain to the bottom, so from John O'Groats to Land's End. It took me 89 days. It was 1,217 miles, roughly, I think, because the route that I picked, rather than being sensible and doing that, it went whoa. And basically, I wanted to make a video to give a few little tips, tricks, advice, anything like that I can give to someone who is looking to do something similar, a long distance hike, to do the same challenge, etc., etc. So I've put together a couple of little videos, which hopefully someone will be able to find some kind of use of. I'm going to go out on a pre-warning. I'm not a professional. If you've come here for useful tips and things that I picked up along the way that are hopefully going to make things better for you, you're in the right place. So without further ado, the title of this video is going to be something along the lines of, this is the equipment that I used to walk the length of Great Britain. So in this little video, we're going to cover everything that I used gear-wise. And hopefully you'll be able to get a bit of an idea of what you need to take on your walk, or maybe you've been looking at some of the kit. Maybe this will give you a better idea. So without further ado, let's have a look at some of the kit. Okay, so the first bit of kit we're going to look at is perhaps one of the most important in my eyes. I'm probably going to say this a lot in this video. But I think one of the most important things that you are going to have when you're walking any length of distance, whether it's a super long distance one like this 1,000-mile one, or whether you're going to be doing like 100 miles like the West Highland Way or something like that, one of the most important things you can have is your bag. Now, everybody is going to be different. There's going to be people who have certain views and opinions like, oh, this bag is the best, why have you picked this one? Meh, meh, meh. This is literally just what I took, what worked for me, and what I liked. So yeah, after all the considerations, I thought this bag was absolutely fantastic. I would recommend it to pretty much anyone. So some of the advantages of it, or pros of it, or whatever you want to call it, there was so much room in this thing. So it's a 65-litre bag, and then it's got a pocket on the top. So it's got a massive pocket on the top. You can fit loads in here. And then it's got a little sort of bottom compartment that's shielded from the rest of the bag. So what I did is I had all my sleeping stuff in this bottom compartment. I was going to say, I don't know if you could see it down there. I'll have a look at the footage. So yeah, I had all my sleeping stuff in the bottom compartment down here, where the tent has been sort of cinched onto the outside. And then the main compartment was where all like my food, my clothes and all that kind of stuff went. If we're talking about the bag, it is super lightweight. It's very comfortable. I think this bag weighed like a kilo or something. In fact, it's probably less than that. Yeah, I'll put up some fancy stats like here or there. I don't know what I'm doing. Somewhere on the screen will be some fancy stats of like the weight and things like that. I paid, it was probably just over 100 quid for this bag. Do I think I got the money worth out of it? Absolutely, 100%. It was fantastic. It's got a section here that will stop your back from getting absolutely drenched, so it gets a bit of airflow behind there. If you rig up all these straps and you tighten them all correctly and you put them all in the right place, this thing distributes the... Let's try that again. If everything is tightened up correctly and you've got everything in the right place and it's adjusted to fit you, this thing helps you carry the load way more effectively over your entire body. So me and a friend of mine actually exchanged bags when I was sort of building up to do this walk, and he had like a it was like a cheap Euro hike one, and it was same capacity, 65 litres. Within like 2 seconds we were both like, oh my god. He was like, this bag is insanely good. And I put his rubbish one on and I was like, oh my god, this one is going to cause me injury. It's got two little pockets on the front here, which is where I used to keep loads of little bits and bobs. Like I had, earplugs, hand sanitizer, Suncream in that one. But yeah, so you can keep stuff in these front pockets. They're a bit of a nightmare to get on when you've actually got the bag on, because they can sit quite weirdly where it's a bit tough to get them. It is absolutely not a drama there. At no point could I not access them. It's just a bit fiddly, but you get the hang of it. The one thing that I will say about this bag that was a bit of a downside, but I think it's probably because of the age of the bag, so I've had it for a few years now, was these little front pockets here. And as you can see, they've started getting a little bit religious. They're a bit holy. So yeah, these are a little bit holy, and it was just after so long of walking on them, I think they were just naturally starting to, you know, get some bumps and scrapes of their own. So this bag was fantastic all in all. I would take it again in a heartbeat. I'm probably going to take this one again on my next trip that I go somewhere, because it was so comfortable. You can fit so much in it, and it's brilliant. So if I was going to recommend a bag, that one's got a big thumbs up from me, although it is a couple of years old, so there's probably some newer ones that might be better. But this bag, fantastic. So we've done the bag. That's a pretty important one. The next sort of important one that we're going to cover is the tent. Okay, I ummed and ahed a lot about which tent to buy, what I should do. Should I go for a tarp setup? Should I you know, take a bigger tent and have more room? Should I take a little? There are all these questions flying by. In the end, which is probably what will happen to you when you're going on your trip, you just have to pull the trigger, make a decision and roll with it. It might be good, it might be bad, but you can go crazy looking at all the different kinds of tents you can get and go mental. At the end of the day, if it keeps the water off you and you can set it up pretty quick, it'll probably be fine. Having said that, I bought this tent, which was called a it's a nightcat tent. What I'm going to do is put the link up here. Check that out. I'm going to put the link up to the tent there. So this tent was called a nightcat, but it's actually based on a model series of tents called the Lanshan tents, I believe. I could be wrong about this. But when I was looking into it, basically this is like a quite a spacious one-man tent that you can hold up with a trekking pole. And I think I had maybe like 7 or 8 pegs, like ultralight aluminium pegs. In fact, why not? I'll show you the whole shebang while we're doing the tent. So I bought this thing off of Amazon maybe like a week before I was going, purely because I was like, the one-man tent I've got, I don't think is going to put with the abuse of 90 days of being out in the elements. And I'm so glad I did, because this thing was a beast. So I'm quite a tight bastard. I don't like paying for stuff, and this tent it beat wind, rain, hail at one point. I was in like a storm in one of them where the wind was taking branches off the trees, and this thing held up the whole time. I think I got one rip in it at one point from like flying branches, which I managed to seal up. Never had any dramas with it. I did have a bit of an issue with condensation in the tent, but that's because it turned out I was setting it up wrong. So if you watch some videos, you basically need like a few inches of gap between the tarpaulin and the ground, whereas I was just putting mine flat on the ground, and then it was trapping all the heat and moisture in, and I was getting condensation. As soon as I gave it that bit of a gap, it was sound. I might put a video up of how to actually set this thing up so you can see. Depends how many people need it or are asked about it, or if I can be asked myself. It's got an internal compartment, which is like a bug-free compartment. So it's got like a mesh, which I thought was going to be a bit superfluous to start with. But holy shit, it was fantastic. The amount of times I set up in like Bug Central, in Bugtopolis, where it was just like midges, crickets, creepy crawlies, spiders, everything. And in my little pocket in here, I was safe. It was like my haven. So one thing I would say is if you're not going to buy this tent, if you're going to get another one, make sure it's got an inner with like a bug screen, like a mesh, because oh my god, you're going to need it. So yeah, it was fantastic. Wonderful bit of kit. Would highly recommend. The pegs that came with it, I didn't actually have any dramas with. I didn't have any pegs bend or snap or anything like that. But what I did is I bought these things, which are MSR Groundhog Minis. Basically, I looked up loads of reviews online, and everybody said if you're going to take ultralight tent pegs, these things are bombers. Like, they ain't going nowhere. They were pretty cheap. I think they were like 16 quid for 6 or something. They weigh literally next to nothing. And I didn't have a single one of these come out at any point during the trip, whether I was on peaty marshland, grassy fields, rocky areas. These things put up with everything. I was stamping them in. And they've been absolutely fine. So yeah, if I was going to recommend ultralight tent pegs, MSR Groundhog Minis were fantastic. Okay, so the next bit of kit, so we covered the tent, the Lanshan, the Nightcat Pro thing, which was fantastic. We're now going to cover on some of the sleeping system stuff. So in the bottom of my bag here, this was where I kept all my sleeping gear, which was these 2 things, 3 if you count the Bivvy bag. But let's talk about the mat first. So this thing it's a Sea to Summit ultralight insulated mat. I'll put the proper thing up on the screen somewhere. But basically, I started off with a regular bog standard go outdoors Berghaus mat, I think. And on the first day of the walk, I set it up in a field and it punctured on the very first night of the walk, which was a right quote unquote bastard, because it was literally the first day and it knackered itself. So I think when I got to Fort William, after I'd repaired it and it kind of never worked the same way, I thought I'd just splash out and actually get some proper stuff. So I got this Sea to Summit mat. It weighs like 500 grams, which was, I think, about 600 grams lighter than my previous one, worth every single penny. This thing I set up on everything from like rocks to twigs to, sharp branches, all sorts of stuff. It never got a single puncture, and it's so easy to set up. And it literally, you just roll it out and it's got like a stuff sack. So I'll just pop it out. So it's like that. You pop that end into the mat, and then basically you can blow into this bag, and if you do it from far away, it fills up with barely any breath. So you go like, it all fills up, you push it in. You can have this whole thing set up in like, less than a few minutes. It was fantastic. Super comfy as well. The only downside to this mat is, one, it was quite expensive. It was worth every penny, but it was expensive. And two, it does make quite a lot of noise, so when you're rolling around on it, you're hearing like lots of ring, 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 ring. If you're sleeping nearby a lot of people, you might wind them up. I didn't have any problems because I was normally out on my own in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, but all in all, this was a fantastic mat. It was well worth the price. It was super lightweight, which helped keep my kit down. So yeah, I would really recommend it. Sea to Summit, fantastic mat. Moving swiftly on, we have my sleeping bag, which I kept in this dry bag. So we'll come on to tips in another video. This is just about the equipment. But what I was squeezing, a little sneaky sly tip, is I had everything dry bag. The idea is if this bag gets submerged in a river, everything inside it will be dry. If something goes wrong with one of the bags, everything else will be bag. It's just that everything else will be dry. It's just that one bag that's compromised. So I dry bagged every single thing in my my day sack, which might have been a bit overkill because I never had any problems with anything getting wet. And it probably added a little bit of weight on with these dry bags, because these are just bog standard OEX dry bags. I'll put a link through. But yeah, so I dry bagged absolutely everything, which was a bit of a ball ache sometimes, but nothing got wet. So, it's your decision. You can either have a little bit of a nightmare constantly taking stuff in and out of dry bags, or you can be completely dry and have all your kit dry. Your choice. But I digress. We come on to my sleeping bag. So this is another Sea to Summit sleeping bag. It's the Hamelin. It's the Hamelin -1 degree centigrade recycled synthetic. You'll be able to find it. It's a sleeping bag like any other. This thing was great. The whole reason I bought it was because I thought it was lighter weight than my original sleeping bag. That was the only reason. And it turns out it was like 200 grams lighter, because I'd been an idiot and not checked how much it weighed. So I think this is about 1 kilo. Takes up quite a bit of space, but at no point was I cold on any of the point during the walk. Albeit I did do my walk in the height of summer, so I'm not sure how it would shape up in the winter, but this thing, I was never cold at any point. If anything, I slept half out of it for basically the whole journey. So it's really comfy. It didn't weigh too much. If I was doing it again, would I recommend that bag? I would probably say get a cheap sleeping bag that packs down smaller and weighs less if you're doing it in the summer, because I don't think you need a big one like that. If you're doing it in the winter, maybe another story, because I think you want to be as warm as you possibly can. I myself, I've got a bit of a lingering problem with the cold from my time in the army. So warmth and keeping warm and dry is like mega important to me. So like I took the bit of a hit on the weight and had the bigger one, just to make sure I didn't get cold or wet when I was sleeping. So yeah, for sleeping stuff, that sleeping bag was perfectly fine. It was brilliant. It did cost quite a lot of money. You could probably do it with a cheaper one, to be absolutely honest. The next thing we're going to talk about is the cooking system. So this is one of your big three. So you've got like sleep, shelter and cooking are like the big three things to focus on. So my cooking system, I haven't actually got it with me because I'm an idiot. So what I'm going to do is put a picture of it up and walk you through. So basically, I had this little titanium Tokes cooking pot, 750ml capacity. It's right here. Here's a picture of it, and I can even be like, "Oh, I'm going to have a brew." So I had this titanium cooking pot, a Tokes cooking pot. It weighed like 70 grams or something. It was mint. All it has to do is have water in it and be able to boil water and put your meals in. It did it, and it was super lightweight. I never had any issues with it. It was just fantastic. So yeah, if you want a cooking vessel, I was going to take a jet boil when I started off this journey, but then turns out the jet boil actually had a bit of weight to it, and because I wanted to keep all my weight down as low as possible, I took a 35-gram cooker, which was, I'll put it in the, I've said that so many times, but I'm going to put it in the description or whatever. But it was basically this little, we call them pocket rockets, and you screw it onto a gas canister, and it's like 3 prongs like that, and then you balance your cup on the top of it. And that cooker for the stove, that stove cooker thing, was 35 grams or like 27 grams or something. It was so light, and what it meant is the heaviest part of my cooking was the gas. So I would have recommended that because it took a little bit longer to boil water compared to a jet boil. Like jet boils are like, bam, you got hot water. Whereas this was like, took like 3-4 minutes. But for the sake of 3 or 4 minutes, it was like a few 100 grams lighter. But yeah, it's a bit of an insight. I never had any problems with it. It was fantastic, really low weight, would recommend. I'll put all the stuff up. I tell you, before we dive into some of the other stuff, let's do trekking poles. I bought these off of Amazon. I've never used trekking poles before. I wasn't going to take trekking poles. Then I realised my tent needed trekking poles. I thought, well, now I'm going to have to get trekking poles. A friend of mine very wisely said, if you're going to get one trekking pole for your tent, you may as well have another one. Then you can actually use them when you're out and about. And you've got a spare in case one breaks. So you're always going to be able to set up your tent. I think these weighed 500 grams. They're called Trailbuddy trekking poles. And these things, I tell you what, as much as I would like to shimph about them, these were actually sound. So basically they're telescopic like that, so they extend out. And I use these particularly quite a lot in Scotland and on the Pennine Way. These were great. I've never used poles before, but as I'm getting on a little bit and my knees have took a bit of a battering from my time in the army, these were great. They were fantastic. The only thing that I did have to do was do a bit of jury rigging on the clips, where basically I had to put duct tape around the fixing here to widen the clip to give it more pressure when it closed. So about halfway through the walk, I was putting these little clips down and it was doing nothing. You could still push the pole. So yeah, I had to wrap a bit of duct tape around there at one point just to make it a bit fatter so the clip had more pressure. Yeah, these trekking poles, really good. They were quite inexpensive, pretty lightweight as well. So yeah, if you're looking for trekking poles, these ones I can pretty confidently recommend. Gotta love that. Coke Zero, sponsored by Coke. Well, I'm not sponsored by Coke Zero, so I didn't put that in case something happens. What did you do about brews, Jevon? Well, I'll tell you, because I love a good brew. They're great for morale. They keep you warm. And it's just, sometimes it just takes the edge off. You know, you need to have a sit down and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something. A brew sorts you out. I started off and I took a brew kit with me. It was like a little plastic box. It had like powdered milk, sugar, all that in it. Within like 5 days, that got frisbeed out the window. Because it was just quite bulky. It was X-ray. It was a faff. And the whole thing that I learned from any of this journey was the more quickly you can do something, the more likely you are to do it. So if you've got a tent that takes ages to set up, you'll procrastinate setting it up and it'll be a chore and you'll hate it. But if you've got one that you can set up in like a minute, like that one, it's not even a drama because you're like, oh, it's raining, right. It's all sorted. So what I did for brews is I transitioned to just having the sachets of pre-done coffee that you can find in any supermarket. And I had like Nescafe ones or Kenko ones. And they've got like milk, coffee and sugar in one sachet. So literally you just boil your water on your cooker, whack that in, jobs are good and you haven't got to take any other bits with it. Is it the best coffee? No. But was it very convenient and exactly what you needed when you just walked 20 miles? Absolutely. So that coffee, perfect. It was exactly my cup of tea. Hey! my cup of tea. What did you eat? Very good question as well. So what did I eat? I started off and I was taking like dehydrated meals and camping meals that were like boil in the bag ones, or you boil water and pour it in. And this is the pros and cons for it. So they're very nutritious. They're very easy to cook because you literally just put the whole thing in your boiling vessel, you put the lid on, and in a couple of minutes you've got food that's hot. And it's pretty tasty as well. The downside of the camping ones, one, they're pretty expensive. So I think the cheapest deals I could get were like £3 or £3.50 a pop for these camping meals. And if you times that by 90 days, that is a lot of money on camping food, which isn't that tasty, or, you know, and I was just like, that's going to add up really quickly. So I only had a couple of those to start with, and I never went back to them because of the third sort of drawback is the weight. So one of those meals weighed like 300 grams, 400 grams. Now, to anyone who's not done a lot of stuff before, you're thinking 300 grams, that's nothing. If you have a couple of days worth of food, let's say 3 of those a day, right, that's nearly a kilo of food for that day, plus like another day. It's like 2 kilos. That's a lot of weight. And when it's all on your back, you feel it after a few days. So yeah, I personally wasn't a big fan of the boil in the bag ones because they're too heavy. I then tried the dehydrated meals. They're much lighter because they're like 100 grams or less than 100 grams per meal. All you got to do is boil the water, chuck it in. After a couple of minutes of leaving it sealed and stirring it, you've got nice warm food. They're really tasty as well. Same problem though, they're just dead expensive. So I think they were like getting up to like £5 a pop. I might be wrong, you know, I'm sure some people will correct me and go, oh, well, actually, you can get them for like 50p here. Whatever, I found they were quite expensive. So I didn't take them purely because I was just trying to do this on a budget. If you've got quite a bit of money and you want to have a bit more comfort and, you know, enjoyment in your food, they were a pretty good winner, to be honest with you. Lightweight, easy to cook, tasty. They were just a bit expensive. So what did you have, Jevon? Well, very good question, because I backtracked on all of what I've just said there about expense. I ate a lot of pub meals. So particularly on the Pennine Way, when it was like real rough conditions, I was getting hailed on in the middle of June. And yeah, you know, I just walked long distances, my legs were knackered. I had like quite a lot of pub meals. They were way more expensive than a £3 camping one. So, you know what? Thinking about it as I'm talking right now, maybe it's not such a bad deal after all. You decide. But yeah, so I ate a lot of my food when I was out. So if I walked past a little corner shop or a little co-op or something, I would get like a sandwich and stuff, lunch for the day. For my evenings, my staple meal was noodles. So I ate an ungodly amount of instant noodles. I had like cut up bits of chorizo and like pepperami and stuff in there to give it a bit of like substance. And then what I did is I had a little pot that Simon and Becky, if you are watching this, it was revolutionary, thank you. But they gave me a little pot full of herbs and spices. And it was just this tiny little thing, but basically you shook like a teaspoon of it into your noodles, and all of a sudden it went from being like 5 out of 10 to like 7 or 8 out of 10 because it had loads more flavour. So yeah, I personally never struggled. I never got bored of it or anything like that. I'm a man of simple taste, so it even though it probably got a bit monotonous at times, it never really bothered me. So yeah, if you're after some tastier food or some a bit nicer food, I totally, you know, I understand if you take different meals or whatever. But yeah, instant noodles was like a staple diet of me. Your wet kit and your warm kit, what do I mean by that? The wet kit is going to keep you dry and your warm kit is going to keep you warm. So my piece of wet kit, I didn't take waterproof trousers purely just because I think they are a bit redundant. I'll come on to why later, but we'll focus on this now. So this is like a Patagonia Torrentshell something or other. The actual thing will be in the description. But basically, this was quite expensive, and the reason I picked it up is because I was taking a waterproof jacket that I got at a charity shop that was fantastic, but it weighed like a kilo, which is a lot of weight for a single piece of clothing. This weighs like 200 grams. It did a very good job at keeping the water off me. I'm not a massive fan of waterproofs at the best of times. I think you're better off taking clothes that are like lightweight and fast drying than you are covering yourself up with waterproofs because you get damp. Anyway, we'll come into it later. How did it do as a jacket? It did pretty well as a jacket. Did it do £180 well? Because that's how much I bought it for? I don't think so. I think if I was maybe doing it again, you could have got away with taking a cheaper waterproof. I think that was a bit of an overkill. I just wanted it because it didn't weigh a lot. And it did that really well. When you crush this down, it takes up like no space, and it weighed virtually nothing. So for weight and stuff like that, it was fantastic. I think it was a bit overkill for how much I paid for it. So yeah, that's my review of that Patagonia jacket that I'm sure everyone's going to crucify me for because it got absolutely sterling reviews online. But yeah, I thought it was, it's a little bit, what are you going to do about it, you know what I mean? The next piece of equipment was my warm kit. So this was basically, if all else fails, I'm in my tent, I'm freezing, I'm going to be able to put this on and I'll stay warm. And it was a Mountain Warehouse like down jacket. I don't think this cost me that much. I think it cost me about 40 quid in a sale or something like that. I don't know what it's supposed to be rated down to. You know, they say like, oh, it's good to -10 or whatever. I think they all tell a few porcupines there. I don't know whether I'd take this in super cold conditions. Was this good? Absolutely. Did it do the job? Yeah. In fact, I only wore it about twice on the whole 90 days, even at the start in the cold, when it was like -1 at night. I only put it on a few times, and it's mainly because you're either walking and sweating, or when you're in your tent, I was in my sleeping bag tucked up. So I didn't really use it that much, other than, tell a lie, this was my pillow for the whole 90 days, and it was a very comfortable pillow. I would always advocate taking a piece of warm kit, even if you think it's a waste of time, because just to know that you have it is, you know, it's going to set you up if you get wet, or if you've had a lot of exposure to the wind or the elements or whatever, you know, you can get set up somewhere, get your warm kit on, and you're going to be fine. So I would always take a piece of wet kit and a piece of warm kit, even if you think it's over the top. This packed down really small. It didn't weigh a lot. It's a few 100 grams. It's a pretty good jacket. I don't think you need to absolutely break the bank on it, especially if you're doing it in summer as well. You know, you probably could have got away with just taking a fleece or something. So yeah, that was pretty good. So yeah, I would always advocate having a little beanie or something, because they don't weigh a lot. They can fold up really small and they keep you nice and warm. So yeah, beanie, any normal bog standard one. I have no idea what brand this is. Brasher, I think. Go Outdoors special. It was a couple of quid. Well worth it. So what I'm going to talk about now is just a little offshoot, which is how you're going to stay dry when you're walking. And it's basically something called wet and dry drills, is what they used to call it in the army. And if you listen closely, you can hear every collective veteran or serving member of the armed forces groan as I talk about this, because it's a bit uncomfortable, but it works wonders. So basically what it means is you split your kit into two. So you have a wet kit, which is what you're going to be walking in every day, and then you have a dry kit, which is what you can put on at the end of the day to stay nice and dry. So what that means is, let's say I was walking in this stuff in the day. I walk, get soaked to the bone, whatever. When I get nice and set up for the evening, I want to chill out, cook my food, go to bed. I take all of this off, put another set of dry clothing on, so another dry set of walking trousers or whatever, go to sleep. And then it means in the morning, I take that dry stuff off, I put it away, and then I put my wet kit back on again. And it sounds horrendous, and you know, there's a couple of times, especially early in the mornings, when you're like, oh my God, I've got to put on this freezing cold soaked set of trousers or whatever. But I'm telling you, after a couple of minutes of wearing it, you know, after like half an hour, you sort of forget that it's wet. And more often than not, it dries out with your body heat as you're walking anyway. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, but in terms of like keeping your kit low, like I only took 2 sets of walking trousers. I had a wet kit and a dry kit, and that was it for the whole thing. I had like a set of exercise shorts for if I was washing some of the stuff. But I only took 2 sets of trousers, and they were fine the whole way through. Even if I got soaked to the bone and stuff like that, I never struggled. So yeah, wet and dry drills coming to a hiker near you. Okie dokie, so we've talked enough. I've yammered on enough about all the wet kit and warm kit and kits and exercises and stuff like that. Let's talk about something else useful. So one of the other things that I had in my kit that I was wearing was your shoes. These are massively important. So to start with, I took a set of trail running trainers that look basically like these ones. They were just like a bog standard pair of trail runners. They were good shoes. They were like 130 quid or something. But what I quickly realised was although trail runners are designed to be lightweight, breathable, dry fast, they're supposed to be running. I don't think they're supposed to be used over incredible amounts of distance carrying weight, because what was happening is after sort of like mile 15 every day without fail, my feet were starting to like ache, like they were bruised. You know, I carried on for like weeks, and then I was eventually like, I'm gonna have to sort this out because it's a right pain. So what I did is I chucked those ones away, and I bought a set of these when I was in Glasgow. So I was about 20 days into the walk, and they're a set of Merell Vibrams or something like that. Now, I don't know if I could recommend these shoes. I think you can probably find better ones. Did these do the job? Absolutely. They were just over £100. They marketed themselves as being Gore-Tex and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you, your feet are going to get wet. What I think you're better off doing is wearing waterproof socks, which we'll come on to later. But yeah, so these shoes, they were pretty light. They were very robust. So these things have got loads of tread left on them. I walked about 800 odd miles on these. In fact, probably more, probably like 1,000 miles. No, probably about 800. And yeah, and these were great. My feet stopped aching, so I went to like a proper outdoor shoe shop in Glasgow, and they gave me like insoles to put in them. So I've got flat feet, so they gave me stuff to put in to help with that. And these were great. You know, I had a right bastard at the start because I bought them, you know, a couple of weeks into a massive walk. Unfortunately, I got a lot of blisters. So in that first sort of 10 days after I had them, oh my God, I think I had 11 blisters at one point. I had like 7 on my right and 4 on my left, something like that. It was not very nice. So what I would say is whatever shoes you're going to buy, wear them in and do it beforehand and make sure they're right. Because I didn't. I just jumped in at the deep end thinking, oh, I'll be sound. And then, you know, I paid the price for it. Not to say you can't do what I did, because obviously I did. But if I was going to do it again, I would definitely do a bit of prior planning. So yeah, these Merell Vibrams, all in all, they were all right. They did the job. They did plenty of miles on them. They were pretty comfy as well. I just had a lot of problems with blisters. Yeah, I mean, all in all, they were pretty sound. You know, I didn't have any dramas with them. I do, however, think you could probably get better ones if you did a bit more looking into it. Because I bought these as like I have to get another set of shoes today. I didn't have the luxury to sort of shop around. I just went, right, I'll have to go with these. So yeah, good shoes, but I think you can probably do better. Touching off again, so you can tell I'm not a professional, you know, kit guy. But basically, I took a bivvy bag with me. So this is it weighs a few hundred grams. It's like an OEX Bush Pro or something. And basically, this thing goes on the outside of your sleeping bag, and it stops any water from getting in, so it's waterproof. The pros of this is, what it means is if something happens to your tent, you've always got dry sleeping. You know, you can put this around your sleeping bag and you can turn into a slug, you know, and just coffin yourself into this like cocoon, and you'll be dry. I personally think they're worth their weight in gold, especially on a long hike. If you're doing it for like a really extended period of time, like 90 days, always knowing that I had something dry to put around my sleeping bag was wonderful. However, up until about halfway through the walk, I actually stopped using it because it was getting into summer. You know, it was really hot at night, and so like I did stop using it, but I would always take one because of how small it folds up and how, you know, how little it weighs. For saying that if all else goes wrong, you're going to have dry kit, I think having a bivvy bag is a winner. So yeah, it's just my 2 cents on it. I'm sure a lot of people will say, you don't need it in summer. I think it was worth it. So I took my bag of electronics, okay? So because I was going for such a long time and I was trying to wild camp most of it, I didn't know how long I was going to have in between stops in which to charge the battery up on my phone and stuff like that. So all I did is I had 2 power banks. They were just ones I got off like Amazon or I think Argos or something like that. But I've got a little Anker 20,000 milliamp one there. This one was great because it had a little, I don't know if you can see the display, but basically it just tells you how much battery power it's got left in numerical figures. So rather than being like, oh, it's got about a third left, this was like, oh, you've got exactly 36% left, which was great because it meant I could plan it out properly rather than being like, I don't know if this has got for example, this thing, it just has 4 lights on it. So it'll tell you when it's a quarter full, half full, 3/4 full, full. So when it got to that last quarter, I was like, I don't know if I've got a quarter of the battery left, or 10% of the battery left, or 5% of the battery. So it wasn't like a massive deal. I never struggled with power the whole time. I always found places to charge up along the way. But having 2 power banks meant that if I was really frugal with my phone, I could get like nearly a week, before I had to stop somewhere. And then in this little bag, I just had a couple of like charging cables. I had spare batteries for my navigation watch, which I'll show in a minute, and my head torch and stuff like that. Only a couple, because they do have a bit of weight to them, but you're always better off carrying off spares, just in case the worst happens. And all that was in a really heavy duty dry bag. This thing's got duct tape on it. It's not because it got broken, it was for me to try and label what my kit was. So I was like, oh, the one with duct tape on, that's my electronics. Bit of a weird way of doing it, to be honest with you, but it did work. So yeah, this was in a heavy duty dry bag. So a lot of my other stuff was in like quite lightweight ones. Because I knew how important the electronics were, this was in like proper heavy duty stuff. So these did weigh a little bit, these dry bags, but you could have thrown these into a river and all your stuff would have been fine. So for your really important stuff like electronics, these ones were really good. And then what I also had was a nav watch as like a backup. So I'll explain this in one of the other videos, like the tips and tricks and stuff like that. But I did all my navigation off my phone, which, you're probably talking to some people like some keen outdoorsmen, and they'll be like, "You did what?" They'll be horrified that I navigated the whole of Great Britain just off my phone. But basically, at the start, I took maps with me. I took paper maps. I had a navigation watch. I had my phone. And what was happening is it was so easy to check my phone because it's got the GPS on it and stuff like that, that I just used my phone for all of it. At no point did I struggle with connection or anything like that. I got GPS signal everywhere, even in the Pennines and in Scotland. I'm not saying you should fully rely on it, but basically I think towards the end of the walk, I had my backup nav watch in the bag. I didn't switch this thing on once throughout the whole walk. I just used the phone. So I would say definitely know how to read a map. I'm getting into the tips and tricks territory here. This is about kit, Jevon. This is about kit. So yeah, take that all with a pinch of salt. But I had a backup navigation watch. So this is a Garmin Fortrex 601. This is a proper old bit of kit. You can get nav watches now that will basically make you a cup of tea. And they're super switched on, they're mint bits of kit. This was cheap and cheerful. I think this was like 120 quid when I bought it many years ago when I was in the army. And this thing can just get battered. It's been thrown down like ravines. It's been in rivers. It's been in snow. This thing has put with absolute abuse, and it's always worked. It runs on batteries as well, so it's like you never have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to charge it. You just chuck a couple of batteries in, it's sound for like 3 days. So yeah, this nav watch, absolutely mint. I don't think they actually make them anymore, so I think getting a hold of this specific one is going to be a nightmare, but honestly, worth the weight in gold. I didn't actually use it on the walk, but just knowing that I had it, if all goes Pete Tong, you've got some in your back pocket you can get home with, I think is worth the peace of mind. For how much it weighs, it's like maybe 100 grams or something, well worth having a backup. Okay, so we've done electronics. Let's shoot off. We're going to do water for this next little bit. I probably should have done these in categories, like this is important, these are the big three. I'm an idiot, so I've just done all of this as I see it on the bench. So we're winging it, but we can get to the useful stuff. So the next thing we're going to talk about is your water filtration. When I went, everybody said you need to take a filter, which I 100% I still back. How many times did I use this filter? Not that many, maybe like 10. In the whole 90 days, I probably used this maybe 10 times, maybe 15. Definitely take one, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Like if you were out in the middle of the sticks in Scotland somewhere and you haven't got any water left, there's some places in Scotland on the West Highland Way that are like 15 miles from the nearest bit of civilization. So if you've messed up and you haven't got any water, it could be a bad time. So I would definitely make sure you got a water filter. The one I used was the Sawyer Squeeze. I got this for like 50 quid, which I'll go into in a minute. Got this for about 50 quid. It comes with 2 pouches. You can fill these up with water, you screw it onto the device, and then you basically squeeze the bag and it will filter out clean water into a vessel of your choosing. The reason I got this for 50 quid, I think it's actually like 80 or 90 or whatever. I accidentally bought this like as new off Amazon, which I didn't realise. So it meant it had already been used. And what that meant is I didn't try this out before I went on the walk. I just went on it. And then I was really worried that this wasn't going to do the job properly and I was going to be drinking dirty water. So it took me a couple of times before I was like, right, I need to actually use it and see if it works, because there's no point in lugging it around if it's, you know, it doesn't do the job. And, you know, there's loads of videos on how to use this specific one, so I won't cover on the exact specifics on how to use it. But yeah, essentially it allows you to filter water that's like absolutely bogging, you know, standing stagnant water. This guarantees that you'll be able to drink from it. All the places I filled up from were running water. They were like streams or rivers that looked fairly clear and uncontaminated. I never had any problems with getting any, you know, any issues from drinking water. But that's because I like to think I did it pretty savvily, you know, so I didn't fill up from like animal troughs or anything like that. You probably can with that. However, my experience is just make sure it's running, make sure it's fast flowing, and you know, you probably won't go far wrong with the water filter. I also kept water purification tablets just in case something went wrong. They only weigh a few grams each. You can get them from like any outdoor store. They only cost a couple of quid. Just for my peace of mind, I had these, I think they're like bleach tablets or chlorine tablets or something. And you put it in, the water doesn't taste very nice. You know, it's got a bit chemically taste to it, but it's drinkable and you're not going to die. So I think just as an emergency, having water purification tablets is a very good idea, considering how lightweight they are. As for like my actual water containers, I just used normal plastic bottles that you get from like any shop, you know, like a Tesco's or whatever. I had like a Buxton water bottle that was like a litre, and then 2 500ml ones. And I just refilled them up and used them throughout the whole time. So I don't think you need any fancy Gucci, like, oh, this is a titanium water bottle that was founded in the Mount, you know, Olympus or whatever. You don't need any of that. It's just, if it holds water and it's not going to leak, you're fine. What people did say to me was, why haven't you got a Camelbak? Your bag's got a little compartment for a Camelbak. You idiot, take a Camelbak. I think there's 2 schools of thought with this. I've taken Camelbaks before on long distance walks, and what happens is they can pierce, you know. Same for like a plastic water bottle, I suppose. But they're a bit of faff, because obviously you have to fill them up, you put them in your bag, you've got that tube, you have to make sure they're clean, because you don't want to be drinking like stuff that's been left in there for a few days that could make you ill. I thought the juice weren't worth the squeeze, because I've took them out before and they've pierced, and then I've been like, right, well, I've not got a container now, where? So I just stuck with little plastic water bottles. Those things, they can get battered in there absolutely fine. You know, I was dropping them in like down rocky paths and stuff. I was like standing on them at one point, and they never had any dramas. So I think, you know, you don't need anything fancy. In fact, they were literally just like that. It was just like a bog standard plastic water bottle. I think they're fine. I don't think you need anything too fancy. So yeah, I think that's water pretty much covered there. I'll tell you what we can do before we get into clothes and stuff like that. Let's do a couple of the little tours. So in my front pockets of my bag, let's get it on my left side, I took a couple of little bits and bobs that I knew were going to help me out. I had a midge net. This thing was worth its weight in gold in Scotland, because I went early in the year in April to try and miss midge season. And what happened was we had an amazing period of sun. Great for walking, don't get me wrong, but the midges all came out early, so I got hounded by them anyway. So I'll come on to it later, because I did have midge spray with me as well. The midge head net just means you're not constantly having to like slap your face, or because they can get really annoying at times. So having a midge head net just means like you can talk to someone outside and not be constantly getting bitten. So I think for how much these weigh, you'd be daft not to take one. I had a head torch. It's bog standard, nothing special. I had this one from you know, many years previously. It's been bashed, smashed. It does the job, you know. As long as you've got some kind of head torch with you. I always carry a couple of lighters in various different pockets. Because when you want to have a brew and you want to cook your dinner, there's nothing worse than not being able to find a lighter. So I had a couple of lighters on me, just little gas ones. I took this little spork that I bought on a whim from a Go Outdoors shop. It was like £1 or something. I use this literally every single day. This was brilliant. I used it to eat basically everything, and it weighs nothing. So yeah, little spork or something like that, you won't go far wrong. I had a set of super glue and a set of like tent glue, which are different. I didn't realise, but some super glue won't work on like tent fabrics and things like that. You need to use like tacky, I don't know, I think they call it all-purpose glue. But I had super glue and all-purpose glue, just 2 little tubes for if the worst should happen, I can patch up my sleeping mat or whatever it was. And then what else did I have? I had a multi-tool. So this is a SOG multi-tool. Any multi-tool will do the job. I'm always an advocate of having them because although I probably didn't use it that many times, maybe like 30 times in the whole 90 days, but when I did need to use it, it was there. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if I didn't have anything, I'd have been like, oh, for God's sake, I haven't got a knife or I haven't got a set of pliers to, you know, do this or whatever. I think for how much they weigh and how much use you can get out of a multi-tool, I would always have one with you. So yeah, that was all in my front left pocket. And then my front right pocket was all like my Suncream, which turns out is very important if you're on really long walks, because I was like, I don't need Suncream, and I just kept getting burned over and over again on my nose, my face, my hands. I was being stupid. Definitely take Suncream. It's a bit of a nightmare because you have to apply it all the time, but also being sunburnt is also a bit of a nightmare when you're walking for that long. So wear Suncream, don't be an idiot like me. And then I took hand sanitizer. I've never taken hand sanitizer before because I've always been like, I'm out in the woods, I don't matter. Anyway, long story short, if you are in a situation where you get your hands contaminated, like maybe you fall over and you fall in like some dog shit or something, or cow shit or some kind of shit. If you fall over and your hands get proper gipping, like they fall in really boggy water or whatever, it then compromises everything else you do then on, because everything you're touching, you've got a chance that it's going to make you ill, you know, like when you're eating or if you're drinking or whatever. So I would always carry hand sanitizer just so you can be on the side of caution. On the topic of gipping and shit, this is another one of the pieces of kit that I took, and it's a little folding trowel. And basically, I was umming and ahhing about whether or not to take one of these because I was like, oh, I'm not going to need it. You know, if worse comes to worse and I get caught short, I'll figure it out, blah, blah. Long story short, I'm very glad I got one. So, yeah, it was about 3 times I got caught with an upset stomach. I don't want to, you know, bore you with the details or horrify you with the details. It got a little nasty, okay? So having a trowel where you can dig out a place to go to the toilet is respectful, not just for yourself but for everyone. Because if you're on these national walking trails like the West Highland Way or the Pennine Way or whatever, you want to be a positive contribution to this trail. So you don't want to, like, for example, if you didn't have one of these and you just like left shit and, you know, dirty toilet paper and stuff all over the floor, I think that's a scumbag move, because then it means everyone else who walks past there is going to have to see it and be like, oh my God, what is wrong with people? So it's like, for the sake of how big it is and how heavy it is, take a trowel, be responsible and clean up your own mess. Clean up your shit, because, you know, we're all grown adults at the end of the day, and you should want to look after the environment. You should want to look after the places that you love spending time in. So yeah, don't be a grot bag, don't leave shit everywhere, take a trowel. Then we have first aid kit. It doesn't have to be in a bag like this, obviously. You can put it in whatever you want. I just did this so it was easily findable. I think I went a bit over the top. I think all you need in your first aid kit is blister plasters and painkillers and like a roll of fabric tape. Blister plasters are important because I thought I could just use regular ones and they kept coming off all the time. The moleskin, like Compeeds, worth the weight in gold. Definitely take those in your first aid kit. I had a roll of fabric tape for like taping over the hot spots that were getting worn away quite a lot. This was like a sacrificial layer. And it's just good if you get like a cut or something, you can put it on. I did have regular plasters as well, but I took a mix of ibuprofen, paracetamol. I took anti-diarrhea meds like Imodiums. Definitely take them. You never know if you're going to need them, and if you do need them, you really need them. So take those. I had like allergy tablets. I had, what else did I have? Had some sleeping tablets as well because I didn't know how I was going to be in like loud campsites or whatever. Never ended up needing them, so I was fine. I took Rennie's like heartburn stuff. I think that was about it actually. Aspirin. And then, yeah, I just had loads of individual plasters and stuff like that. You don't need to complicate it. As long as you've got something to put on, like any cuts or any blisters or anything like that, and you've got a couple of painkillers in there, you'll be fine. So, yeah, you don't need to go too in-depth on a first aid kit. I took a very, very long spoon. This long spoon was to get out of the, the packs, the ration packs I was talking about, like the boil in the bag ones or the dehydrated meals. It means you're not getting shit all over your hands. I only used it like twice because I only had 2 of those meals or like, a handful of those meals. It is really good. It weighs nothing and it stops your hands from getting all messy. It's a bit over the top though. That Spork that I showed earlier, that red one, I use that every day. So do you need an extra long spoon? Probably not. It's a bit of a, you don't really need it. What else have I got in my bag of tricks? I had some smidge. This got a lot of use, particularly in Scotland and on the Pennine. There was a lot of like creepy crawlies about, a lot of midges. Now, I still got bitten an insane amount. I was still covered head to toe in bites, despite the fact that I baptised myself. I performed a baptism on myself with smidge. I was normally Patri Sancto Spiriti, covering myself in this stuff. I still got bit absolutely everywhere. I wore long clothes. I kept my sleeves covered. I think if you're going to spend a long period of time in the outdoors in mid-season or whatever, I think they're going to get you. Regardless of if you've got spray or if you haven't got spray, mileage may differ. I also took Avon Skin So Soft because I'd heard that was a really good repellent. That did nothing, or I didn't notice it doing anything better than this. I think if you're going to be like passing through, this stuff's probably like good. But I was reapplying this every couple of hours, and I still got bitten loads. So just bear that in mind that I might have got bitten less. I don't know because I didn't ever go without repellent. But I don't know. I think like you're probably still going to get bitten a lot. So just have it in the back of your head. To smidge or not to smidge. I'd probably say to smidge, but you're probably still going to get bit. I've got the bag. That's as good as you get. I took a little dry bag like this. It's just a little OEX one. And in this dry bag, I had a microfiber towel that fit in this little container. So it was a teeny tiny little towel. I used to not like using it because basically as soon as water touches it, it like wicks up and you end up drying yourself with this like damp rag. However, it sounds like I'm moaning. That thing was great. It dried insanely quickly, like half an hour out on like a line. It was dry. So that towel was fantastic. It was dead cheap as well. So definitely get yourself a little towel like that. Don't take a big one with you because it'll take ages to dry. It takes loads of weight. This thing was like, 50 grams. It was wicked. So yeah, get a microfiber towel. I had a bottle of shower gel. And I used to take little bottles and then fill them up all the time. I ended up just getting normal bog standard bottles of shower gel because most of the campsites and stuff I was staying at had showers in. I was getting a lot of use out of it, and it used to wind me up having to fill them up all the time. And then I had shower gel, towel, a fold-in travel toothbrush that weighs next to nothing, like a little manual one. And then I had travel size toothpaste packs. I think once again you probably just get a normal big size toothpaste pack and it will last you the whole time. But yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as you've got something to brush your teeth, something to wash with, and something to dry yourself with. You know, you're probably fine. I think also in here I kept like my what do they call it? It was like anti-inflammatory gel that I was putting on my feet and my shins and stuff. So basically, yeah, in your wash kit, you just want your stuff you're gonna be washing and drying yourself with. I've made that a mountain out of a molehill, but you get the idea. Have a wash kit with you, put it in a little bag. So another little thing I just want to talk about before we wrap up is, so we've talked about how you keep all your kit dry. Like I said, I put everything in dry bags, and it was all like, I grouped it all together. So like my sleeping bag went in that one. I had like food that went in another one. I had like my wet and warm kit that went in another one. And all it means is if you need to grab it, you know where it is, and it's all like, oh, my green bag is my wash kit, so I need to get my green bag. Oh, my orange bag is my wet kit, I know I need that. And it just basically means it stops you from, it means you can be as comfortable as you can, because if it's lashing down with rain, you're not having to take your whole bag apart to find that one piece of equipment. You can just be like, oh, it's raining, I need to put my jacket on, orange bag, bam, 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 done. And like I said, in my experience, the quicker you can do something on a big walk like this, the easier it is to do, the more chance you will do it, and the less it's going to wind you up. So yeah, knowing where all your kit is, keeping it all dry and keeping it organised in bags, that is a pretty big one from me. What else was I going to talk about? Shit, I had it in my head and I've completely forgotten it now, bastard. Oh, that was it, okay. So another big thing about your equipment is keep it as light as humanly possible, because if you're doing a really long trek, even anything sort of like 100 miles plus, keep your weight down, because I didn't. And at the start, my bag was about 20 kilos, and it's doable. I managed like 3-4 weeks with it, but it's just, if you're carrying loads of weight on your shoulders and on your hips and on your back and stuff like that, it just means it increases the chance that you're going to get some kind of injury. What it means is if I trip or stumble and I'm wearing a heavy pack, all of that weight is going to compound on that injury that I'm about to get. So if I would have just got a twinge in my leg, if I've got 20 kilos on it rather than like 15, it's probably going to do more damage. And I really underestimated that. And as soon as I lightened my bag in Fort William, I think it was, or in Glasgow, the rest of the walk went so much easier because I wasn't carrying as much stuff. So I was carrying at the start like 4 days of food, and I was carrying like 3 litres of water. I think you can really reduce that down. And I was carrying 2 litres of water at a minimum, because I was always able to find spots to fill up. I would always recommend having at least 2 litres. But when it got really hot and we were getting them 30-degree days, I was carrying like 4 litres at one point. So, you know, you've really got to adapt to it and what you need. For food-wise, I was never more than a day away from places to fill up for food. I think the maximum might have been like a 2-day walk on some of the really bizarre out-of-nowhere trails like the Pennine Way. But for everywhere else, I was able to find places to stock up. So I would say, see what works for you. You probably do what I did, where you carry too much food to start with, and then you figure out what you're comfortable with as you get along. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to say to you, only take 1 day's worth of spare food with you, and then you get stuck in a sticky situation, you've got nothing to eat. So that's obviously bad. So, you know, you'll have to figure out what you're personally comfortable with. There were some people I met on the West Highland Way that just had one 1 litre water bottle with them, and they were filling it up at every stream or whatever they got to. And they were comfortable with that, and it worked for them. Fair play. I wasn't so much, because I would always just think in the back of my head, what happens if I run out of water? If there's no streams or whatever, then I'm buggered. So yeah, for me it didn't work, but for them it did. So, you know, it's like 6 and 2 freeze. You'll have to figure out what works for you. Yeah, so for food, I'll cover that in another video because I think it'll take me ages to explain. Camping gas, just a little 150 gram container. I'll cover some tips and tricks for that in another one, but just bog standard camping gas. Earplugs, always take some earplugs. You never know if you're going to be in a busy campsite, or if you're going to be next to like a roaring river or something, or maybe the wildlife's really active and you're quite a, you know, light sleeper. Take some earplugs. For how much they weigh, they're so worth it. Okay, so for clothing, what did I take for clothing? I took they call them like travel shirts or walk-in shirts, and it's basically like a collared shirt, but it's made out of really lightweight, really breathable material. They're great. I wore that loads. My other clothes were kind of restricted because I was doing it for charity. I was doing it for these guys and Macmillan. So I was wearing their stuff. So if I wasn't doing it for charity, I would be wearing as lightweight and as breathable stuff as I could. But I took one travel shirt. I took two Macmillan t-shirts. I took one pair of exercise shorts, 2 pairs of hiking trousers, and like 3 pairs of underwear, 3 pairs of socks. And that was it. And I basically just, as I was going along, would constantly be washing and rotating them out. Because if you carry too many clothes, not only are you taking up weight, but you're taking up space, and that's a big commodity. So yeah, try and keep your clothes to as less as you can. What I would say is don't freak out too much if you're thinking like, oh, I might need more, or I think I could do less. Don't worry about it. Take whatever it is you're going to take out with you. You can always chuck stuff away, or you can buy more clothes as it goes on. So it's like I replaced socks as I was going through, and you know, I probably could have got away with taking a lot less stuff. You could probably get away with taking like 2 t-shirts or something, but it all depends on what works for you. So go out on a hiking trip and take some stuff, and then see how you deal with it. Some people like having a lot of spare clothes they can change into. I was just rolling mine, you know, washing it wherever I could. So yeah, so I didn't really take that many clothes. I had a sketchbook with me because I said I was going to try and sketch a lot of stuff to rather than being on my phone all the time. What happened is I was knackered at the end of the day and I couldn't be bothered to sketch, so I did like 4 sketches. So I ended up throwing the sketchbook away. I took a fleece as well, and I wore that fleece more than I wore any of the other bits of warm kit or anything like that, because it was dead easy to just chuck on and off. Ah, right. Waterproof socks. Nearly forgot about them. I've never been a believer in waterproof socks, and I'm happy to say this trip has changed my mind. When I was with my aunt and uncle, Ali and Chris, up in Fort William, he said, I swear by these seal skin socks. Wear them, they will do you the world of good. And I was like, anyway, I wore them. They were game changers. They were brilliant. So like in some of the wetter conditions and wet weather, I was putting them on the top of my normal boot socks. And they were like super, super dry. So you could walk through like swamps and bogs and things like that, and your feet were absolutely fine at the end of the day. So I'm a firm believer, get a pair of, you just need 1 pair of waterproof socks, and I just put it over the top of my normal ones, washed it wherever I could, and they were brilliant. So I think rather than getting like fancy boots that are Gore-Tex, I think they're always going to let you down, but the waterproof socks were sound the whole way through. So waterproof socks, really good one. Okay, so come into your equipment, know where it all is, and know how to use it all, and how you can set it up and stuff like that. So what I mean is, don't wait until you've started the walk to figure out how to put your tent up. If you know how to put your tent up and it is lashing it down the rain, you're getting battered, you know in your head, oh, in 40 seconds I can get my tent up, or however long it takes you, you know, I know exactly how I can set that up and I'll be dry. So know how to use all your kit, like your water filter, make sure you know how to use it rather than when you actually come to use it. Electrolyte tablets. It's just come into my head. Game changers. I've never used them before. I thought they were witchcraft. It turns out they're mint. You just get these little packs, they're like science and sport packs. You put it into a bottle of water, shake it up. After a couple of minutes, you get like a drink. It's kind of like naff tasting squash, like juice. But oh my God, it was like after the first time I used it, I had like aches and pains in my muscles. After like 20 minutes after I'd drunk one of these, they got like a third less. You know, it was like noticeable. I was like, oh my God, I can feel that straight away. Like my legs don't hurt as much. They're great for stopping cramps, keeping you hydrated and stuff like that. Great. Take them. Yeah, electrolyte tabs, they're the game changers. Really, really good. I think that's about it. I think that's everything. I'm sure there'll be something that I've forgotten that I haven't brought out in this video because I've done a rubbish job of organising this. I've just put some of the kit that I used here and hope for the best. So that brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully you found something useful out of all of this. If you do have any questions or any queries, send them over. I'll try and help where I can. But obviously my experience is quite limited to what I've done. So yeah, hope this helps. Best of luck if you're doing a long distance hike of your own. And yeah, have a good one.